Hi everybody, welcome back once again to the Eastfield Gunroom YouTube channel with me, your host Matthew Morgan. We are back, sadly for the last time this year, but don't worry, we're back in the spring at the fabulous Harper Auctioneers and Valuers down in Gloucestershire. I've already had a bit of a walk around to see what I can spy with my little eye. There's some fantastic guns once again in this auction. The dates for your diary are November the 5th and 6th, where you can come down, of course, and view on November the 4th, and everything is online, so have a look online. Get in touch with the guys here. They're super helpful and they will send you that condition report, which is what we always recommend you get if you're unable to view on the day. There's over 800 lots in this next auction. I've had a look at a lot of the guide prices for the shotguns we're going to look at today. And let me tell you, there is the potential for some massive end of season, end of auction year, if you like, bargains. But I've actually picked out two in particular that I think could be the stars of the show based on the guide price. So let's get into it. Before we do that, this video is proudly sponsored as ever by the British Shooting Show. It's not too far away now, so do get those tickets booked. And important announcement, we've now hit the fanfare milestone of 10,000 subscribers. Thank you to everybody that supports the channel, comments, likes the videos, because we couldn't have got to 10k without you. And to celebrate, we've got some exciting giveaways between now and Christmas when the big man himself is coming. So as ever, the guys here at Harper appreciate my lack of organisation, so all the guns are in kind of brand specific order just for me. So we're going to kick off as ever in this far left hand corner, and we've got quite a few Berettas to go at. However, we've got a gun we haven't looked at before, so that's my first point of call. And this is a Beretta SO4. Now, the SO4, we have done a video on the SO5, so feel free to have a look at that. This model, of course, precedes the SO5, so you're looking at a gun that's around about 1975 to 1988, something like that. Quite an interesting piece. This has actually got two sets of barrels, an original set of 30-inch barrels, or 29.5, and an additional set of skeet barrels that have come from another model, which I believe is an older Beretta sidelock. Both bowler antinate steel. This one has got the original stock dimensions, original pad. And you've got to remember that this is a handmade shotgun. The SO5 today is in excess of £30,000. This is a fantastic little combo set. It's got an interesting twist that it's got a kind of a Cerakote matte finish on both sets of barrels. It comes in a case. If you know about the Beretta SO, you will know about the quality and the level of work that goes into manufacturing one. This is lot number 1941 and it's a guide price of £1,500 to £3,000. Now, if you take into consideration the fact that even buying an additional set of barrels for an SO is probably going to cost you around about £2,500 to £3,000, that has the potential to be a great, very usable gun for somebody in a trap skeet combination. We've got long barrels here, so you could get it teeth choked, take your pheasant shooting, do whatever you want, and you've got a handmade gun from the 1980s. So moving smack bang up today, there's a huge popularity at the moment for small bore, particularly long barrel guns. We have got, this is the third auction in a row, we've actually got a different 28 gauge Silver Pigeon 1. Now we've got a 12 bore Silver Pigeon 1 game gun. And then this is quite interesting because we've got not only one, but two, almost a composed consecutive pair kind of thing. Beretta Silver Pigeon SC. Now this one is a gun that was pretty much manufactured specifically for the UK market. And the idea was it was a Silver Pigeon that would look traditional, hence the case colour hardening. So what you've got is you've got the standard kind of engraved Silver Pigeon S action, but you've got this beautifully mottled effect of the case colour hardening, which make it look like an English kind of gun. This one is a 28-inch multi-choke. It is pretty much unused. All the gold on the trigger is still there. It's a game gun, so narrow rib, auto safety. Nice piece of oil finish walnut with an oval. And with this being quite a modern gun, I think it's 2008, it is high performance steel shot proof. So you could buy that gun, take it out and do absolutely everything with it. Of course, it's a shorter barrel gun, so more suitable for kind of bit of walked up game, bit of driven pheasant shooting, just a general all-rounder, particularly if you're someone of a slightly smaller stature. But like I said, as new condition, and it's only got a guide price of £500 to £800. Now that puts it about £1,000 cheaper at the higher end of the estimate than a brand new one. And it's essentially the same technology. We've got mobile chokes, we've got high performance steel proof, and it's a gun that you don't see very often. And if you really like it, you can buy yourself a fixed choke one to go with it as a consecutive pair. Now, we've got a usual smattering of kind of older style 686 specials. We've got a 20 bore. We've got one with like a homemade Monte Carlo stock, and there's a 682 at the bottom. So all older guns from the sort of mid 1980s to the mid 1990s. And then we go over here and we've got an absolute classic. As ever, I can reach everything because I'm tall. So this is a Beretta S56E. This predates the 680 series of guns, and this gun will be around about sort of 1974, 1975. It was the last of the S series Berettas, or S50 series Berettas. You had a 55, 56, 57. Now, the interesting thing with this particular gun is it's got a straight hand stock. So if you want to go from kind of the transition of an English side-by-side or a continental side-by-side and go and try an over-under, if you like, for the first time, this could be for you. 28-inch fixed choke, quarter and half. So it's a very, very universal, usable gun. It's in pretty good order, to be fair. And what's even better is we've got a guide price of £100 to £200. So as Berettas go, that's about as cheap as they get. And even if you wanted it as a guest gun or for an occasional bit of grouse shooting, something like that, it's just a bit different. It's got that very, very famous brand attached to it. And one of the key differences between this and, of course, the kind of features of a 680 series gun is you've got this little roller forend, like some of a Hornby train set, that rolls backwards and forwards to put the forend back in and out of place. There's no dints in the rib. The checkering's pretty crisp. Auto safety. The original Beretta hard heel plate. What a lot of gun for not a lot of money. So moving down, we've got another S50 series Beretta. That's a 58 series, slightly longer barrel, probably a trap gun. And then this is quite an unusual gun. It's a Perazzi MX8 with a case colour hardened action and a ramped rib from around about 1978 to 1982. There's a lot of guns in this auction from that era. The foresight B probably wants a little bit of work, but if you've got a box of Lego somewhere, there'll be something in there that'll go on the front. Now, this is a gun we haven't featured on the channel before. This is a Blaser F16. So the F16 was launched back about 2018 and 19, I believe, and it was kind of a lower price gun to not compete with the Blaser F3, but to give Blaser a separate kind of market. Now, this particular gun is the Grand Lux, so it's an upgraded version of the standard F16. And what you've got here is you've got very, very nicely figured grade 5 oil finish woodwork. It's a low profile action with this kind of Old Spice waves design on the action, matte finish barrels, definitely high performance steel proof, 30-inch barrels, multi-choke in very, very good order. Now, even a basic F16 will cost you around about £3,500–4,000 today. So this upgraded version in its original case with all its bits and pieces, lot number 1925, £2,500 to £3,500, could be a good buy for someone that likes an F16 but just wants something that little bit prettier, and you've always got that German engineering to fall back on. Now, this is an absolute classic. This is one of my all-time favourite Brownings, the Browning GTI. It's a gun you don't hear a lot about these days. I haven't featured one on the channel because I simply haven't quite found the exact model that I want. These are quite old guns now. We're talking 1987. They were kind of born up until about 1994, maybe a bit later than that, about 2000 for the Ultra XS, which is the gun that it came before. Competition clay gun, ventilated rib, ventilated barrels, black action, very, very famous gun. This one comes with a security device trigger lock. It's actually a load of Teague chokes. Now, this one is a 30-inch sporter. But what's interesting with this, it's got a massive, massive stock on it. Now, if you're a really, really tall guy and you want to buy a gun on a budget, but you want the reliability and the durability that Japanese shotguns will give you, this could be for you. Enormous stock, multi-choke, 30-inch barrels, 1991 manufacture. If you're a really tall guy and you're looking for a gun with loads of Teague chokes, you might want to consider that. That is lot number 1924. So moving down, we have got some Browning B25s. For those that don't know what that is, it is the handmade creation of the famous John Moses Browning. Remember that 2025, we celebrate 100 years of this fantastic creation. Now, the first model we've got here is a B2. So B2 basically relates to the style of the engraving and the grade of the gun. This is 1977. Now, anyone that knows about Browning B25s will always say to you, or certainly my opinion is that the best guns were made in the mid-1970s. So this gun is completely handmade. It's completely hand engraved. It's signed by the engraver. Now, this particular gun is a 27.5-inch skeet version. So it's skeet choked. However, because the stamping on the barrels, we know that it's quarter choke. And a lot of people like to use these for driven game shooting, and there's nothing that handles quite like a B25. It's got a 12mm rib, all original in terms of the stock dimension. It's got the original Bakelite heel plate, and that comes in for a handmade Belgian shotgun with a guide price of £400 to £800, and that is lot number 1923. Now, underneath that B2 skeet gun is another B25. Now, I mentioned at the start that I believe there were two guns in this auction that were absolutely, potentially outstanding value based on their estimates, and this is one of them. So what we've got here is we've got the ubiquitous B2G. Now, that means it's a B2, the same as the other gun, but the G stands for the bold engraving that is adorning the action. It's basically a G for Germanic. And this is a gun we have featured on the channel before. Now, if you go back to the 1980s and 90s, these were everywhere. They were favoured by clay shooters. They were favoured by game shooters. Now, this particular gun is a 30-inch, what's called a 206. Now, the 206 relates to the width of the rib, which is 12mm, and the fact that it's got 30-inch barrels. Now, this is a 1989 gun. It is original in terms of the stock dimension. So we've got 36, 56. It's a nice piece of wood for a B2G. They're not always this good. Schnabel forend. We've got no cracks where they tend to go. They've got an Achilles heel here on the forend. The gun is nice and tight. It's got some of the original lacquer on it. There's a little dent in the rib and a bit of rubbing on the barrels. I believe it's choked, fixed choke quarter and half, which again is all factory original, and it just presents extremely nicely. Hand engraved, we've got scenes of pheasants on one side and we've got ducks on the other. And the standout thing for me is there's no doubt that B25 values have dropped over the last few years, and it's particularly affected the shorter barrel guns, 26-inch barrel guns, 27.5, even 28s to a point. But there's always a place for a 30-inch B2G or any kind of B25, because in terms of handling, in my opinion, there is absolutely nothing better. Now, the scary thing is, if you were to buy a brand new one of these today, you're looking at about 2.5 years, although it will be multi-choke, and you're looking at between £18,000 and £20,000. Now, I was extremely shocked to learn that the estimate for this gun is £400 to £800. Now, completely ignore for a second the fact that it wants, you know, maybe the barrel's blue in and a little tiny bit of gunsmith work. This is absolutely for nothing, and it is why it is my first pick of the bunch of the auction, and it's also in a leather case. In case you're wondering and you're thinking about owning a handmade masterpiece for Lambert, almost Lerona money, this is lot number 1922, and I might even, because I'm so impressed with this particular gun, have a cheeky bit on it myself. So underneath that fantastic B2G 206 Sporter, we've got some less exciting, but certainly still exciting, Japanese Brownings. We've got a 325 grade 3 with an interesting semi-pistol grip conversion and a recoil pad. And then we've got another gun we haven't looked at before, which I am intending to do, which is the B125, because it's a very, very interesting story. This particular gun, again, we've got a whole bag of Teague chokes with it and the interesting addition of a recoil reducer as well. A couple more Browning lower grades, and then we've got a Browning B27 by looks things, or I think they were affectionately known as the Liège. Some very, very basic Browning B25s. Just because they're old, just because they're plain, these guns are still completely handmade and can be bought for an absolute song, as I've just shown you with that B2G. Browning Medalist, the gun that Browning never ever made, but managed to get away with the fact that they marketed it for a number of years, sold an absolute shed load of those guns around the sort of, again, 1990s. It was a direct competitor to the Lambert, sort of the, you know, the best starter gun that you could buy for sub 500 quid. And then we've got some older Mirakus. Now, this is the Miraku that caught my eye. This is an 800 SW skeet. And basically what the SW stands for is sock washing. No, it's silver action with a wide rib. So this is a 26-inch skeet gun, choked skeet and skeet We've got this enormous 16mm rib with a tram line, with a centre bead, oil finish woodwork, super, super crisp in the way that it opens and closes, all clean in the chambers. The stock has been slightly shorter maybe for a younger shooter, but it still retains the original oval with the initials VAC, so maybe this belonged to Mr. Dyson, who knows. Gold wash trigger, that is a lot of gun, because if I tell you that gun was made circa 1975, still going, it's in great condition, the checkering is extremely crisp, the screws have never been out the back of the back strap, sorry, the trigger tang. 80 to 120 pounds. You could literally buy that just to have a go at skeet if you've never shot skeet, because the chances are if you go out and shoot skeet for a morning, by the time you've paid for your cartridges, you'll be paying more for the shooting than you will for the gun. That is lot number 1907 Miracle 800 SW skeet in extremely good order. Underneath that gun, we've got another 800 skeet gun, which is much less embellished because it's got a black action and a standard butt plate. Couple more Miracles depending on what you want. There's nothing really modern in this auction Miracle wise. And then we go to one of my favorites as ever. We've got a selection of Winchester 101s, all for absolutely no money. Diamond grade Sporter 28-inch multi-choke, 101 lightweight fields, and also we have got one of the very modern Portuguese manufactured Winchester Selects. So something for everyone in this auction, but that's always the case here at Harper Field. Now, this is a very, very pretty gun. This is a 28 gauge, which we know is very popular because there's a lot of people choosing it for game shooting these days. If people are starting youngsters off clay shooting, it's, you know, sometimes the favored caliber because there's a bit more lead than there is with a 410. Now, this is an Italian made gun. It's a Resini Aurum, and doesn't it look the part? So we've got a case color hardened action, very, very nice sort of burr, walnut, long factory stock. Check it at the back. We've got a semi-pistol grip, kind of Prince of Wales grip, and it just looks fantastic. Now, this particular gun is 28-inch barrels, multi-choke, around about sort of 15 or 16 years old, I believe, and it's on a true 28 gauge frame. A lot of modern guns, for example, Brownings, they don't make 28 gauge actions. They use 20 gauge frames and just put kind of scaled down barrels on them. Usually with the Italian manufacturers, the likes of Resini, Guarini, etc., they always tend to use a small frame. So as a little woodcut gun or a partridge gun, that's going to do everything you want. It's very, very pretty. We've got the serial number very nicely picked out in gold on the bottom of the trigger guard, full tang trigger guard, vacant oval. We've got Aurum Classic nicely done on the bottom of the action. We've got these scalloped side pieces, push button fore end, and the gun itself, you know, the engine turning is still present on the lump. It shuts up nice and tightly. It's clean. There's no dinks in the rib. And we've got on there lot number 1897, £600 to £900. So it's still going to come way under something like a second-hand Silver Pigeon 1, for example, because not everybody wants a Beretta, and you've got to admit that is a pretty looking thing. So below that and into this corner, we've got like 47 million E Resini. So we've gone from the B Resini, which is the Aurum, and then the E, which is Emilia Resini. Now these are sporting guns with ventilated butt pads, very, very popular in the 80s and 90s because it was a side-plated gun with multi-chokes that cost sort of less than 500 quid. Not sure what these are on at, but they won't be a lot of money. So we talk quite often about a guess gun, a spare gun, a pigeon gun. That wouldn't be a bad shout. Then we've got some AYA Yeoman over and unders. Now there's another gun, which is something we've only featured briefly on the channel in a side-by-side variant. Now this is an SKB, so it's Japanese quality, very, very well made. We've got a Kirsten locking bolt like a DT10 or a DT11. This is a more modern SKB. It's a 605. Now this gun would have been manufactured probably about 20 years ago, something like that, maybe a little bit less, when they were being bought into the UK by, I think, a company called Shooting Star. But as a gun, very, very strong, very reliable. This is a 28-inch barrel multi-choke, pistol grip. We've got a nice little cap on the bottom, selective trigger on the trigger, bit of game scene engraving, not like the dislike the 825 game, you know, pheasant in a bubble bath. And that is lot number 1884. 80 to 150 pound. Now, if you go back 20 years, a gun like that would have been 4 or 5 times that money. Below that, we've got the Coffs and the Yieldits section for anyone looking for a Coffs or a Yieldits. And then we move into another little Yieldits. That's a 28 bore by the looks of things, an invest arm. And this is an interesting gun. It's a Nikko Shadow Indie, which again, if you go back to the 1970s, these were very expensive, but also very popular. They had a huge following. People like the big 20mm airflow rib. They like the vents in the fore end. They like the skip checker. And it was just such a different gun. They were only available in skeet or trap specification. This one is a skeet, I believe, 27.5-inch barrels. And again, from a bit of nostalgia, you know, posterity kind of view, might be a gun you own once upon a time, wish you'd never sold. You could own it again, 80 to 120 quid. So a bit like the Miracle. You might not shoot skeet, or you might want a gun for close range pigeon shooting. Either of these guns is going to do the job admirably for absolutely no money. Couple more Nikkos. Apparently there's a Lorona camo there, but I can't see it. No, only joking. That gun is a full camo Lorona, multi-choke. You could literally go on the shores and foreshores and chuck it around, 30 to 50 quid. And to be fair, if you lost it, apart from the problem with the licensing authorities, it wouldn't matter. More Loronas. We like Loronas. They're Spanish, they're solid. And moving on to Lambers, which is the epitome of Spanish and solid. And that kind of concludes the over and under selection. And then we move on to the side-by-sides. Right, you've heard of the Great Wall of China. Welcome to the Great Wall of side-by-sides. So what we've got here right at the top, lot number 1819, I'm reliably informed, is a 16 gauge Holland and Holland. I think it's got sleeve barrels. I've certainly not seen one that looks like that before. A couple of other English side locks. Stephen Grant, very famous. We've got a nondescript one. And moving down, we've got a Wesley Richards. And this Bonehill, as you can see, has got very nice Damascus Rose twist barrels. Now, I've talked about this on the channel a few times when we've talked about AYA. It's a little bit in the air as to whether they are still manufacturing guns or whether they have ceased trading completely. But now is the time to buy an AYA number 2. They are so affordable. There's a selection of them here. One that's even got its original certificate from 1978. That is a proper gun. All its colour hardening, 28-inch barrels. They are very usable, they are very reliable, and they are absolutely, without a doubt, very affordable at the moment. We've got more Spanish stuff. We've got Laranaga. Someone's actually used this one to draw a picture of a deer on, like a design for a Christmas card. That's lot number 1804, if you're looking for something a bit of a giggle, right? And then moving down, we've got something which is a bit more modern, a bit more me. We actually got a Fausti, and at first sight, I thought it got a shot cam on the end, but it's actually a box of chokes. So Fausti, current manufacturers, Italian guns, very popular in the States. Had a little bit of a thing here in the UK, but sadly no longer imported. Good quality guns. We've got here a single trigger side by side, which is non-selective, which is quite interesting. Nicely game scene engraved, beaver tail fore end, multi-choke. I think about 2008 manufacturer with a bit of a butt pad on the end. Now, a lot of people are moving over to have a side-by-side as a fun gun. I know several people that kind of shoot them at Christmas in fun competitions with their mates. This could be that gun. It's got a high-vis, easy hit on the front. It's got a slightly raised rib, not in bad condition overall. And this is 200 to 400 quid, lot number 1802 for the Fausti with a dog on the bottom, side-by-side. Then you've got a mixture of English and continental stuff. I'm not going to lie, some of this stuff looks like it's very worn, but that usually means it's very cheap, and it might suit something like a budding gunsmith. If you want something to tinker around with on a Sunday afternoon and you've fixed all your motorbikes, maybe treat yourself to a side-by-side and crack on with that. Then we move into the box locks, and we've got some really nice stuff. We've got H. Grove, not Biker Grove, JB Warlow. I remember when they used to sell trainers when I was a kid originally. And this is a Wesley Richards gold name. So what you've got here is you've got like a rounded action, the very famous Wesley Richards name in gold. It's scallop back. It's got a nice piece of wood with an oval. It is, of course, an ejector. Now, this is a 16 gauge again, which is a caliber that's, I wouldn't say it's making a comeback, but people are seeing the benefits of it. If you've shot a 12 and you want something that's a little bit light, a little bit less kicky, these can be a good option. It's got the traditional Wesley Richards ejector patent top lever. This has actually got sleeved barrels on it, which means from a future-proof point of view, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. Lot number 1783, 3 to 500 quid to own a gun by, without a doubt, the most famous Birmingham gunmaker. There are some more Wesleys here. We've got a nice little box lot with a great big pad on the back. We've got a very interesting gun here. Now, this is where I actually started my gun trade career. It's George Bates, which is another famous Birmingham maker. And this is actually a featherweight version, which means that there's virtually no weight in the barrels whatsoever. It's got a sunken rib. More English stuff. We've got an underlever, interesting gun there. Damascus barrels, more English box locks. There's just something for everything. It depends what you want. You know, the traditional English box lock for me is, you know, quite subtly engraved with a little bit of a ribbon on it, like Thomas Wilde or something like that. But if you want something more ornate, there's a Boswell here that's got checkered side panels. There's another Boswell that's got dogs on it, I think they're pointers. Now that's quite unusual because with the majority of classic English guns, they're usually scroll engraved. You don't see too much with game scenes on. A greener here with some case colour hardening, and there's just something for absolutely everything. There's so many English guns here that are not going to make a lot of money. It's a crying shame, and you need a reason really not to put one in a cabinet. Moving further around the Great Wall of side-by-sides, we've actually got a few small gauges, small bores. We've got some 410 folding. They're going to be Spanish, I would have thought, El Chimbo or El Paso or, you know, something like that, or Belgian. But the gun that stood out for me was the AOA, again, a famous, huge brand in shotguns. Now this is a 410, 27-inch barrels, case colour hardened. I believe it's a Yeoman model because it hasn't got a separate bottom plate. But if it is that you are a traditionalist and you want a side-by-side to maybe start off your grandson or one of your nieces, nephews, whatever, this won't be a huge amount of money. It's something you could potentially cut the stock down, make it nice and short. And because, again, it's built on a true scale action, that's going to weigh about 4 and a bit pounds. So even for the smallest junior, starting off at sort of 8 or 9 years old, that could be a really good gun. It's in very good order. That's lot number 1658, and that's 300 to 500 pounds. You just never see 410 AOA side-by-sides. Case in point, straight underneath the AOA, we've got one that's already had the stock hacked for a junior. Couple of more folders, some single barrels, an interesting looking single barrel there, which is a Bakel, I believe, in plastic. And then we moved round to some more stars of the show in terms of the side-by-sides in this auction. We have got to kick off the biggest name. We have got a James Purdy. It's an assisted opener, so it's a wrist breaker, manufactured in 1900. We have the original oak and leather case with some prominence, which confirms that this gun had new barrels fitted by Purdy's in 1969, and both of them are half choke, which basically means from a modern shooting point of view, this is a very good gun for game shooting because you've got a bit of choke. A lot of old English side-by-sides of this kind of age will have had less choke, which is presumably why the barrels were swapped in the first place. It's in good order. It's been regularly serviced. It's got some nice little accoutrements in the box, i.e. the turn screws, the oil bottles, all those things that make owning an English gun so very special. Now, 20 years ago, you wouldn't have touched a Purdy for less than 20, 25,000 pounds. This gun, unbelievably, lot number 1703, has a guide price of £6,500 to £7,500. Incidentally, the barrels are 28 inches. That is a fantastic gun. And let's not forget, without a doubt, the biggest name in English sporting fine arms. And from London, we go up the M6 to Birmingham and to one of, well, without a doubt, the finest Birmingham maker, which is William Powell. Now, this is a really interesting gun. This is a Damascus barrel 20 bore with a thumb push lift top lever. So we haven't got a traditional top lever which pushes across. We actually lift it up like that. How cool is that? It's got a doll's head extension, 27-inch barrels in very good order. It's got checkered side panels, nice bouquet scroll work, a good length stock as well, because again, with some of these older, particularly small bores, you know, that are 100 years old, they will have been shortened for youngsters, for ladies, that kind of stuff, particularly when you look at the small bores like the 20s, the 410s, the 28s. This gun has got a case with it. Whether it's a traditional one, we don't actually know, but it's certainly a William Powell case. Even smells like 1907. Really nice gun. £300 to £500 is the estimate for this gun. lot number 1792. From a cool point of view, how tricky is that? There's loads more side-by-sides. Obviously, we can't go through all of them. One thing I did notice, there is an absolute rake of hammer guns in this particular auction. So if you're looking for any kind of side-by-side, get online and have a look at the full catalogue. One thing I did want to show you before we finish up in here is a final gun, and it's not a side-by-side, and it's not an over and under. It is actually a German hammer triple barrel. So basically what we've got here, I believe this is a converted drilling, and it's most likely German. I've not looked at the proof marks. And you've got a side-by-side with 410, and you've got a 16-bore bottom barrel. Now the way it works is quite ingenious, because if you want to fire the bottom barrel, you pull the hammer back, push the safety forward, this little knobbly bit appears, and that's for firing the bottom barrel. Then you pull the hammer, and it fires the bottom barrel. The other two barrels work completely conventionally. How interesting is that? From a fun point of view, that's a gun you could own literally just for giggles. So that's lot number 1667, only 3 away from the famous Kronenberg, so it's got to be good. That concludes the walk around this particular room, but as ever, there is even more guns to look at. So let's have a look at some more, including my number 2 bargain pick of the day. Right, so more guns to look at. As ever, it is not just a shotgun auction at Harper Field. We have got tons of rifles, muzzle loaders, paraphernalia, memorabilia, air rifles, air pistols, muskets, all kind of cool stuff. Go online, check out the full catalogue, and you'll be amazed at the kind of stuff these guys get their hands on. So back to shotguns, because that is my forte. So we go to the semi-auto and pump section, and we're starting off with some Berettas. There's some 301s, there's some 302s, there's a Browning B80 with a Beretta barrel. How many of those do you see? Because of course Beretta manufactured the Browning B80, we all know that. There's a 20-bore Beretta 390 silver mallard, which is quite an unusual gun. Now here on the end, something that definitely caught my eye as a Winchester nerd is a very, very interesting diamond grade. So this is what's called an under single. Not under pants, it's under single. So this is a single barrel trap gun designed specifically for the US market. And what you've got an over and under action with the top barrel, which is completely blocked off, and it only shoots single barrel trap competitions. It's a diamond grade action, so it's just one down from the Grand European, or they never did a Grand European under single. We've got this great big ramped rib. It's factory Win multi-choke, Winchester choked, polyurethane finish. Now the previous owner to this has obviously cut a piece off, put it back on, put an extending butt pad on, put an adjustable butt pad on. You know, a bit like when you paint your room at home and then you change it 10 minutes later. It's exactly like that. But this is a super, super rare piece. 32-inch barrel, and it even comes with the original factory fitted diamond grade case. These are so rare, I've only ever seen a couple of them, and guess what? This is my pick of the bunch in terms of the potential bargain number 2, because when I tell you this is 100 to 200 quid, you couldn't even buy a ratty old Miracle 800 for that in terms of a trap shooting gun. This is going to be loads of fun. It's multi-choke, so you can ramp it up, you can put half in it, 3/4, whatever you want to do. And like I said, I would imagine probably less than 4 or 5 of these guns ever made it to the UK. So you would be owning something very, very special and very rare. And if you're a Winchester fan like I am, you already know about the quality of these guns. So next on the racks, we have got, as a lot of these are used famously for wildfowling, we've got a gaggle of Remingtons. Okay, there's a load of 1100s. We've got one with a cut compensator, one that looks like it's got some kind of pastry cutting implement on the end. We've got some Turkish guns like Escorts and Eage and things, some Franches, some camo items. Now, the one gun that really stuck out on this rack for me is this fabulous little Ithaca. So Ithaca, American company. This is a Model 37 pump action. It's completely hand engraved. We've got some gold birds on it, deep scroll work, very ornate checkering with a rifle kind of cheek piece, a pad on the end, completely ribless, and it's got a vari choke, which basically means as you twist the screw-on choke at the end, it changes the pattern. So again, you don't see many guns of this era with that on. It was usually Mossberg that came out with that design. So I don't know whether Ithaca copied it or whether Ithaca actually patented it. Who knows? But that is a really interesting gun. You've got something out of the nativity scene on the stock. I'm not really sure what that is at all, but it's there. Guide price on this, £400 to £600 because of the fact that it's very, very collectible. And that is lot number 1827. Ithaca model 37. Very, very rare thing and very different to your kind of conventional Benelli pump actions and your Winchesters. As ever, here at Harper Field, we have got a nice selection of Greener GPs, the classic English single barrel shotgun, Martini action. Interesting here is we've got a multi-choke one in a short barrel, and amazingly, it's actually got a bit of figure in the wood there. See that? So that's a nice collectible piece. If you're looking for a Greener GP, you won't be disappointed. There's lots here to choose from. And if you're looking for something for pest control, you want something moderated, we've got a Bakel, which I think is a 410. We've got an Italian one, and round there we've got the most popular gun at the moment when it comes to low noise pest control, and that is the Mossberg 410 Hush Power pump action thing. That is the semi-autos and the pumps, etc. Now we're going to move on to the cased wonders. We've done the wonders of the world of side-by-sides. These are the cased wonders. Kicking off with, this is a really interesting pair of guns. So this is a pair, match pair, factory pair of 20 gauge, 20 bores. Chaplin. Now, Chaplin is a Winchester gun maker, so it's a UK gun maker. Well, I could not confirm or deny whether these are actually built here in the UK or whether they were guns that were built in the white, in fact, using kind of Spanish, for example, actions and barrels, and all the work was done here in the UK. London proof marks of 2002, so they're not particularly old. The case colour hardening on these is as good as I've seen. Just look at the colours running through that. It's a 7-pin side lock. We've got dropper points. We've got everything done in gold. Furniture is beautifully blued. Very, very highly figured. Really sort of ripply walnut, possibly French walnut, I would have thought. Stocks, nice long stocks. In their fitted case, these are 28-inch barrel guns. I think they're choked 1/4 and 1/2. I mean, even the case, if you had a case made like that today, you're probably looking somewhere in the region of about £2,000. Now, this particular pair of guns is in exceptional condition. You look on the face, all the case colour hardening is still there. They are virtually unfired. So these pair of guns have got an estimate, a guide price of £3,000 to £5,000. I've already said that the case would cost you probably a couple of grand to have made. And one thing I do want to point out is how good is the match on those stocks for a matched pair of guns. You would have to go a long way to find a good a match as that, because it's two separate bits of tree at the end of the day. Fantastic pair of guns, very, very unique and in as new condition. And above that, we have got something which is super, super rare, something I've never ever seen before. You will recognise this instantly because of the side safety as a greener. Yes, it is a greener, but it's a 28 bore greener, something I never even knew existed. If you're a greener fan, and you've got 12s, 20s, whatever, it is a basic model. I think it's called the FH25, but correct me on that in the comments. Doll's head with a cross bolt. The gun itself is in, fair condition. It would benefit for a bit of a titivation, but super, super, super rare. And also in its original greener case, that is a rare treat. Lot number 1768 with a guide price of £800 to £1,200 for a gun you'll probably never ever see again. And if you're a small bore fan or a greener fan, that is a must-have. So move along, we've got some interesting pairs. I think there's a 2-2 greener there in its original case. We've got a pair of William Evans. In fact, we've got 2 pairs of William Evans. Side lock ejectors in the original cases. Guide price £2,000 to £4,000 for these, and they are lot number 1787. And just the guns slightly to the right-hand side in probably better condition, and those are £4,000 to £6,000. But what you've got to remember from an English gun point of view, that is no money. If you went to any gun maker today, Wesley Richards, for example, said, make me a pair of side locks, you'd get absolutely no change out of a minimum of probably £60,000 to £70,000 at the very, very least. As if that wasn't enough guns in cases, there's more over here. And we talked about the fact there's a lot of hammer guns in this particular auction. There's a fantastic Army and Navy there with lots of case colour hardening. It's got a nice pad on the back. There's a Boswell in its original case. And the one gun I wanted to really pick out from this wall, we thought we'd outdone ourselves with one Purdy. We've got another one here. Now, this is actually a bar-in wood Purdy hammer gun made in 1884. Now, it was made for some famous person who won some big shooting event in Monte Carlo. Full details are on the Harper Field website. This gun has got 2 sets of barrels, both the same length, but this was certainly something like a live pigeon gun because of the weight of it and because of the fact it's got a very, very wide rib. Coupled with that, not only is it a Purdy, not only has it got some fantastic provenance, but also this case reminds me of my elf outfit because it's all red and green, and inside we've got some lovely original parts. We've got Purdy turn screws, Purdy oil bottles. Now that is a sensational example of a Purdy bar in wood hammer gun, just so you can see fully what we're talking about. Although someone has scored the stock, got no idea why, it's not been shortened, it's not been cut. They are just lines on the wood, which you would like to think a decent gunsmith could probably remove and return it to its former glory. Guide price on the Purdy hammer is £6,500 to £7,500. Remember, that includes 2 sets of barrels and this fantastic case. So underneath here we've got what looks like an English box lock. I have to check myself because of my aging eyes. So this is a greener, of course it is. We've got a side safety, a bit like the 28 bore, and then we've got a sort of a nondescript box lock there. Midland Gun Company, which even though it's a kind of a basic gun maker, they were makers. It's got an original case with it, which is very nice. We've got a hammer gun, Lancaster hammer, some stunning engraving on that. More hammer guns. We've got a little William Powell single barrel hammer there, quite interesting. So one final point, I've just noticed this. We talk a lot about gun fitting on this channel. This is what's called a crossover stock. This is before the days of adjustable combs, when we needed to put excessive cast on a stock for someone who was right-handed with a left master eye. That is extreme in modern day circumstances, but it's just something I had to show you because you don't see them. Don't see crossover stocks, certainly not on an English gun. And if you want to know more about it, it's a Charles Ingram. So that pretty much wraps up this walk around here at Harper Field for the upcoming November auction. I talked about at the very start of the video finding 2 guns that I believe could be potential huge bargains in this auction. Just to recap, it was that Browning B25 B2G 206 Sporter and that ridiculously rare Winchester Diamond Grade under single trap gun. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please feel free to comment below. Don't forget, if you want any further information on any of the guns we've looked at today or any of the guns we haven't, they are all online on the Harper Field website. Feel free to give them a call, request a condition report, and of course, don't forget you can come down and view all these lots in person on the 4th of November, which is prior to the auction on the 5th and 6th. Any questions you've got, feel free to email me and I will help you regarding the auction process or whatever. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and enjoy the videos. We do appreciate your support. We have hit 10,000 subscribers, so we have got some giveaways coming up in the next few weeks, so do stay tuned for those. As ever, this video is proudly sponsored by the British Shooting Show. A huge thank you to everyone at Harper Field for having us today, and from me and 1,000 guns, I'll see you next time.